as follows. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. How well they understood its human position, how it takes place when someone else is eating or opening a window or just walking dully along. How when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not especially want it to happen, skating on a pond at the edge of the wood. They never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course. Anyhow, in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy lives, and the torturer's horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree. In Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, how everything turns away quite leisurely from the disaster. The plowman may have heard the splash, the forsaken cry, but for him, it was not an important failure. The sun shone as it had done on the white legs disappearing into the green water, and the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to get to, and sailed calmly on. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold this morning, so I'll be coughing through this. W.H. Auden wrote this poem, Musée de Beaux Arts, in December of 1938, following a visit to the Belgian Royal Museum of Fine Arts. The poem speaker, most likely Auden himself, walks through a gallery contemplating various paintings and admiring their ability to convey the human position towards suffering, that is, indifference. Auden had on his mind at that time the 1937 bombing of the Basque town of Guernica and other events that were taking place in Europe at that time, and the general indifference of America to what was taking place in Europe. This was just 20 years from the First World War, where Americans had lost something like 53,000 soldiers in combat. And it was also the time of Charles Lindbergh and the American First Party. And so Americans really didn't want to have much to do with what was happening in Europe. This is an ekphrastic poem. That's your word for, your word de jure. An ekphrastic poem is a poem that comes from Greek. It means to speak fully, to use vivid language. Usually in an ekphrastic poem, what the poet does is he draws on the artistic work of another artist. An example of another ekphrastic poem would be Keats' Ode on a Grecian Urn, or Robert Hayden's Water Lilies, where he contemplates the series of water lilies by Monet. The poem takes its part from three paintings by the Flemish master Peter Bruegel. These three paintings are the Census at Bethlehem, the Massacre of the Innocents, and Landscape with the Fall of Icarus. These three poems share three common attributes. Let's bring up we have that. The first painting here is the Census at Bethlehem. And the first attribute is that they are large landscapes with mundane elements of everyday life distracting us from the main event, the title Action. So if we look at this painting, if you can see it, this is taken from the New Testament, Matthew. It's about Mary and Joseph going to Bethlehem for the census. But if you look, it's really hard to spot Mary in the picture. She's riding a donkey somewhere in the middle of the picture, but there is no focal point to this picture, and Mary doesn't stand out either by the color of her clothes in any way from the rest of the crowd. It's sort of like a Where's Waldo painting. Trying to find her. The painting's composition is democratic in that this painting makes the claim that the human experience is homogeneous, that is, everyone is equally worthy of their space within this painting. Conversely, this painting isn't homogeneous at all, in that although the people are experiencing the same event in the same place, they're all experiencing it in a wildly different way. If you could switch to the next painting. Okay. These paintings are also anachronistic. That is, they're all based on events that took place way in the past. So, obviously, the census at Bethlehem goes from the New Testament. The massacre of innocents depicts Herod's massacre of the children, but it's presented in conventional garb. All the people in the event in this picture are from Bruegel's Flanders. So if you look, you can see that, it's hard to kind of spot, but you can see that some of the soldiers are in red. These are Spanish Habsburgian soldiers. So everything is taking place both in the New Testament, but in Bruegel's Flanders. And in a sense, this massacre of the innocents is taking place in our own world, in places like Gaza and in Sudan today. These paintings also have a common theme, which is humankind's indifference to suffering. So let me take a drink of water here and we'll go back through the poem. If you could go back to the poem. Okay, so let me just walk you through this. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters, how well they understood its human position, how it takes place when someone else is eating or opening a window or just walking dully along. So old masters here might be referring to Bruegel himself, but it also might be referring to just the age-old wisdom that suffering has always been with us and that people are basically mostly indifferent to it. And that while suffering is taking place, we're all going about doing our thing. Children especially, but especially, are skating at the edge of a pond. People are at work. The farmer is in his field. The miller is grinding grain. People are in factories, so on and so forth. How when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not especially want it to happen, skating on a pond at the edge of the wood. There will always be some people who note that great things are happening. In Bruegel's time, this was the start of the 80-year war, Dutch War for Independence. This was the time when the printing press was being first used. This was the time when the Aztec and Inca empires were falling. So there were always people who were cognizant of that. But there were always, again, children skating at the edge of the pond who were just not very cognizant of those things taking place. They never forgot that even the dreadful martyrdom must run its course. So even the children skating at the edge of the pond can be overwhelmed by the events of the day. Innocents can be massacred. And how, in a corner, some untidy spot where the dogs go on with their doggy life and the torturous horse scratches its innocent behind on a tree, nature runs its course. It's indifferent to man. Next painting. Yeah. In Bruegel's Icarus, for instance, how everything turns quite leisurely from the disaster. The plowman may have heard the splash, the forsaken cry, but for him, it was not an important failure. The sun shone as it had on the white legs, disappearing into the green. Water, and the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to get to and sailed calmly on. So if you look at this painting, you see that there's kind of a false focus on the plowman in the front. And so your eyes kind of go from the plowman, maybe you see the shepherd behind the plowman, and you certainly see the ship in the background. And it's only then do your eyes catch, in the far left-hand corner of the painting, the legs of Icarus sticking out of the water. So for the plowman, it was not an important failure. For the plowman, the important failure was the failure of the crops. For the shepherd, the important failure was the loss of his sheep. For the ship, it could have been, the loss of trade. This was actually the beginning of our modern commercial world. Bruges, Belgium, was at one time, was the spot for the world's first stock exchange. At that time, Belgium was the center of the world. But the ship had somewhere to get to and sailed calmly on. W.H. Auden never expected the poem to have much consequence. In fact, he was famous for saying that poetry makes nothing happen. In his poem, he's merely pointing out the human position that much suffering takes place in the corner of the canvas, out of our line of sight. This is especially true for places far away, as the troubles in Europe were for Americans in the winter of 1938. It's also true of Trump's Make America First agenda. This January, in a news interview, J.D. Vance said, "There is a Christian concept that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens, and then after that, prioritize the rest of the world." A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. Vance's argument echoes a medieval concept known as Ordo Amoris, the order of charity, often contributed to St. Thomas Augustus. The idea is that love must be ranked, that a person rightly prioritizes their affections with the family at top. Now, this is true. I mean, it's practical. We take care, charity begins at home. We take care of those whom we love, first of all, and then our community, and then our nation, and then the rest of the world. The problem with Vance's position, his statement, is that charity begins at home, but it shouldn't stop at home. Also, the problem is that it gives the impression that people in faraway places are no less deserving as humans of our love, of our charity, as anyone else. It also reinforces the notion that this country ought to divorce itself from the rest of the world. Before Trump, this nation, through USAID, gave $71.9 billion, or about 1.2% of our national budget, to the rest of the world, to help the starving of the world, which constituted about 40% of world aid. This money was used to fund international organizations, World Food Program, United Nations, Children's Fund, so on and so forth. Especially PEPFAR, a program designed to control the circulation of HIV/AIDS. It's estimated that that program saved the lives of 25 million people. And at the present time, we consider all of this not an important failure.